We have Ralph Robles. He's a solo practitioner practicing in downtown San Jose. He mostly practices criminal defense and personal injury, restraining orders, and federal civil rights cases. Despite growing up in Arizona, he found himself attending Santa Clara Law right here. He fell in love with the area, the culture, and mostly the weather. So he started his own firm to take on the government and insurance companies, represent the everyday person, and guide them through difficult times in their lives. He's currently also the president of Santa Clara County La Raza Lawyers Association and has held various positions within La Raza as well as the Santa Clara County Bar Association. And I would be remiss to not mention his dog, CJ. He loves to spend time with. And then we have Adam, who is a California employment law attorney. He represents employees and small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area and has successfully championed for causes such as employee rights and fair pay, in addition to helping guide entrepreneurs in emerging industries. He's resolved matters with the California Superior Court, United States Federal Court, Division of Industrial Relations, EEOC, and the EDD. And he also practices his focus on representing survivors of sexual harassment and discrimination. And if everyone is not already aware, he has a very hefty following on TikTok. So we are in the presence of a celebrity. So maybe we'll get a sense of how that plays into being a solo practitioner as well. So for the first question that we're going to focus on is going to be, tell us something that would surprise us about you, assuming we have already read your bio, and what's something that you can't see on your LinkedIn or resume that we wouldn't expect about you?
So this question's tough because I do a lot of work. And is this thing on? Is this for that?
It's for that. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's on.
Okay. I am a huge nerd. I still play video games. I still play Dungeons and Dragons with other attorneys. They say you grow out of these things. You don't have to. And once you become a lawyer, you can buy all the really cool stuff that you can do with these things. So it's really just being true to yourself, finding something you like to do, and you don't have to change anything because you become a lawyer. You can still do these things all the way up until you're 35, like I am. So that's something that's...
Talking to the mic. You're saying talking to the mic.
Might be... Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, you guys can hear me.
I know you guys can hear me.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
Okay, there we go. And so it's, just keep your hobbies, keep something that keeps you sane, because it is tough as a lawyer to stay sane sometimes. So don't give up everything to become a lawyer. Still keep your hobbies.
So the question was, what's one of the things that's like a fun fact about us that
Couldn't see on your LinkedIn or resume.
So one fun fact about me is I used to coach high school football, and that's one of the hobbies I used to have that really kept me out of the legal profession and kept me communicating with other members in the community that had nothing associated with law. So one fun fact is I coached football at Palo Alto High School and also at Menlo Atherton High School. And when me and my friends took over the Menlo Atherton football program, we ended up going to the state championship in our third year. And after that, we got 6 kids full D1 football scholarships, and I believe 3 of those kids were the first ones in their families to go to college. So thank you. That's I haven't been applauded for that, but but that's how a football scholarship, and that's what brought me to the University of Idaho. So that's one thing I like. Another thing that a lot of people won't know about is I used to be a professional yo-yoer back in the day. And so just like we were talking about, you still got to maintain your hobbies, even though you're doing something else now.
You can keep it. The next question is going to be, what does a typical day look like in your practice? If there is one, and if there isn't, then maybe just run us through what the big highlights of your regular day is.
So when you're a solo practitioner, you are in charge of everything. When you look into your office, that clock doesn't tick if you're not there ticking it every second of the day. So when we look at my normal day, I'm waking up around early in the morning, and I'm going over to the gym just because you need to get that 1 hour in for you. At least I do. When I go to the gym, it's like therapy because I'm unable to check my emails. No one's messaging me at 5:30 in the morning. And also, you can kind of zone out and just kind of push your body and then, really punish yourself and know that that is the worst that anyone's going to do to you all day. So that's how I started out. Because after I go to the gym, that's when I start looking at my emails and start drinking coffee and getting my breakfast start out right. I probably spend the next couple hours checking on emails, starting to make sure that all my filings went through. And then I start having the phone conferences with opposing counsels and also my clients. Hopefully there's no fires that come up throughout the day, because sometimes when those occur, you are all of a sudden slammed into a different project that's going to take 4 to 6 hours out of your life that needed to get done that day. I typically save my phone calls for intakes, which means when other new employees or employers want to talk to me and discuss their legal cases, I usually save that till after 5 p.m. So if you look at my calendar, there's typically like 5 to 7 phone conferences that are ranging between 5 minutes and an hour every day. So that's a typical day. As a solo, you have to do a lot of things because you're in charge of marketing, accounting, front office stuff, and administrative items. So I'm trying to work less, but I think in the last couple months, I've been finding myself ending working around 7:30 to 9, somewhere in there. But I'm getting better.
So I think time-wise, we're kind of similar. For criminal law, no 2 days are the same. Most days, I'm in court in the morning at 9 a.m. and then again at 1:30 doing a fair range of things. There might be a bail motion that needs to happen. I've been in court and get a call from somebody's mother that somebody's in custody downstairs. Now I got to go downstairs and try to get them out of custody. So it's kind of putting out fires all day long. And it's very rare that I get kind of a office day. I love office days. It's when I get actual stuff done. But it's very rare. I'm usually at the courthouse right there at 8:30, 9 a.m. And then the only time my phone's shut off after 5 is when I actually get stuff done, where I can read stuff, do research, and then doing the office things, making sure, I'm looking at taxes, I'm looking at the expense reports, all those things that come up that you have to worry about as a solo practitioner. But you get kind of all that done in the evening, and then I get done about 7, 8 o'clock at night, or at the very least, I try to shut down at that time. And try to create that separation, which is very tough when you're a solo practitioner. But you just have to really, keep a hard line that you're done at 8 or you're done at 9 at that night, and then you can kind of move on to just hanging out and doing other things.
Great. Next question is also for you. So what is a skill that you think is important for students seeking to become lawyers, and especially those interested in solo practice?
For solo practice, I think lawyers in general, reading and comprehension are always the top one. I think nowadays listening is going to be your top one that you're going to need to work on. It's really tough nowadays. Things move so fast that no one just sits there and listens to each other. You'll get into a mediation or something with opposing counsel and be talking 2 different ways. No one's actually listening and moving the conversation forward. Same with your clients. It's tough to, put everyone in like a basket and move on. You have to really listen. What do they want? What do they want to see happen with the case? I think that's a skill, especially with social media and everything's going online, that you're really going to have to develop, because it's tough to do that. You have to talk to people. You have to go out and have these conversations and learn how to have these tough conversations, which are tough kind of when we're segmented, especially with COVID. I think listening is probably the biggest skill that someone your guys' age is going to have to worry about.
So I agree with everything over here. And then one thing that I would like to say, that skill that you really should pick up if you're a solo practitioner, is accounting. You should know how to do accounting. You should know at least simple books, because when you're running your own business, 50% of the game is running a business, and then the product that you're selling, the service that you're selling, are legal services. So you need to be able to run the business and be the CEO and being the business side-minded person, while you're also the litigator, the attorney, the problem solver, and doing that world too, because there are different languages. When you look at accounting, that's oftentimes called the language of business, because you're able to tell a lot about a business just by looking at their books. And when you're an attorney, you're spending a lot of expenses. You're spending expenses for clients, you're spending expenses for your offices and other fees. So you want to be able to make sure you track all of those, you don't lose anything. And when it comes tax time, you're not afraid to look in those shoe boxes that you've kept everything in, and you're able to just do your taxes and move on to the next day.
Great, thanks. Next is, why did you choose to pursue a solo career specifically?
So I've been practicing law for around 8 or 9 years now, and the first half of my career I was working with early stage startups, and I was also working in startup companies in the Silicon Valley. I was always business minded. You know, I got my bachelor's and a master's degree in accountancy, which is why I think accounting is very important. But also, I learned to fail a couple businesses. I failed a couple businesses when I was just working as an entrepreneur, and I decided to start my own firm back in 2018. I ran out of money before any of my cases were able to pay out, and that's one thing that you really need to understand is cash flow when you're working with a business. I had to go back in-house. I went in-house for another year, and then I went back to a law firm until I went back on my own. Because when I was working in-house, I was just compelled. I did not want to go work for somebody else every single day. I was not completing the work that I thought was fulfilling in my life. I was pushing papers, I was negotiating contracts, and I was making deals. But I couldn't see the help that I was providing to everyday people in their everyday lives. So when I started thinking about how I wanted to provide value to the community, it's similar to when, you know, me and my friends decided to take on this high school football team that went 3-7 the year before, is because I wanted to go hands-on on a lot of work, and I wanted to see progress from that work, and I wanted to see measurables 5 years down the road. So I felt like I had no other option other than to go off on my own.
Can I get that question one more time?
Why did you choose to pursue a solo career specifically?
Choice is probably not the right word for me. Mine was born out of necessity. I always wanted to be a criminal defense attorney since I was 10. It went Batman and then criminal defense attorney. So my dad said we didn't have any money, so Batman was out, so criminal defense attorney it was. When I graduated, there was no public defender positions really open. It was 2012. There were about 1,000 applicants per open position, and so it was tough all across the state to find a job. Good thing about a law degree and a bar card is you can hang your own shingle the next day. And so within a couple months of striking out, I put my own shingle out there. Santa Clara Law had this great solo practitioner's how-to, so I went and took that, and then a couple weeks later started filling out paperwork, keeping my license fees, all that stuff separate, and really just kind of built up from 2013 to today. And really, it's not, especially with criminal law, it's not out of the question to hang your own shingle and do it yourself. A lot of criminal defense attorneys do it themselves. There's not too many big, criminal defense firms that you see every day. A lot of it is just done by, solo practitioners. So it wasn't out of the question. And I got really lucky with some of the contacts I was able to make here at Santa Clara Law and just coming through law school, and just got lucky that way. So it was mainly born out of necessity, but I am very happy with what I'm doing right now.
Kind of leading into my next question. What do you enjoy most about your job, and what do you find the most difficult?
The thing I enjoy most is the flexibility, and really just that every day is different, especially for criminal defense. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to come through the door. And every case is different, even though it might resolve the same, because you're dealing with different people, you're dealing with different DAs, you're dealing with different judges, and you have to figure out a way to get to where you want to get to, whether it's a good plea or whether it's a complete dismissal. Every case is different. The thing that's toughest about cases, especially criminal cases, and I think just in general working one-on-one with clients, is you get really wrapped up in it. And the trauma that you go through, the feelings that you go through, it's tough to not get wrapped up in that, because you also have to keep in the back of your head, I'm a professional, I'm a lawyer. At the end of the day, this is about my reputation, and it's tough not to get wrapped up in the emotions that you feel, especially with some of the younger clients or clients that you really click with. It's tough not to take that on and have that kind of seep into your representation. I think that's probably the most difficult for me, is to kind of distance myself when I need to.
So I'd say the best part of my job is the education aspect. I love teaching people, I love educating people, and seeing that light bulb moment go on their minds. So when I have these consultations, when I have these phone conferences with these employees, when I hear about their issues, when I hear about the situations that they're in, and then I'm able to analyze what's going on and, provide them with the California Labor Code that applies to their situations. And then you start hearing like, oh, I never knew that. I never knew that. And then you start asking them different questions. Then you start telling them there's a lot of unlawful things that are happening in their employment. Or on the inverse, they didn't know about the California Labor Code, and they just need to be educated to know that what their employers are doing is appropriate. And that saves a lot of stress out of families. That saves a lot of stress out of people when they're just able to find information that they need. So that's one of the most gratifying things that happens in my practice. And I'd say one of the hardest parts is time management. Time management, because when you're trying to represent the community and you're trying to do good and do justice, there are a lot of good cases out there. There's a lot of justice to be had. And unfortunately, there's only 24 hours in a day. So that's one of the hardest parts is, seeing someone with a good case, but just knowing that you can't take it on, or, you give them the best options that they can go through, and just wish them the best of luck. And then you ask them for a follow-up once they get it resolved. That's tough too, because, as much time as you want to help them, you also have to look out for yourself as well. So that's a battle I fight with.
Without revealing any privileged or sensitive information, tell us about your favorite matter or client you've dealt with.
That's a good one. Okay, I could tell you about my favorite client lately, and I could tell you about my favorite client lately because we just had a hearing over at the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement, which a lot of people call the Labor Commissioner's Office, or the DLSE. I really like this client because I've been working with her and on her case since 2018. Due to COVID-19, we had a lot of delays. We were having our hearings delayed for a couple of years, and even now, I think I filed the administrative claim in 2017 or 18, and we just had a hearing a month and a half ago. Miss Norma Rojas was working 24-hour shifts, and then she was working 16-hour shifts and not getting any lunch breaks and not getting any meal breaks. And then she was required to use her own car to drive her client around. And while the individual she was taking care of was paying her company for reimbursements for that mileage, for that food cost, for that those bills, that company was not paying Miss Rojas for the fee, for the expenses that she was incurring. The reason I'm able to say this name is because we don't have any settlement agreements and there's no confidentiality agreements, because we wanted to take her case on and we went to the public route. So we went to the DLSE's office. We actually ended up winning. So she got a judgment for over 35 to 40K. And the reason I like this case is because she's a really good person, and her story never once changed. The other side's story changed, and she, wants to do good with what she has. She doesn't want a lot, she just wants what she's entitled to. And because of that, we got a judgment against the business, but because I have no faith in the business, and I didn't get the CEO on the hook, we appealed that to the Superior Court. So even though she won for 40K, we're still going to the Superior Court because I want to spend that extra time so we make sure everyone who's liable pays their fair share.
So my most memorable client is part of a case where I did something you're not supposed to do as an attorney. You never promise or guarantee a client anything. As an attorney, I did. Talking about piggybacking off letting my emotions get the best of me. This case involved a 73-year-old woman who was wheelchair bound, who was evicted from her apartment. When the day came where she was supposed to be out, she could not leave because her son, who was going to help her, hurt his back. Instead of, giving her a week or two, the apartment complex decided to call the police on her, and they cited her for trespassing. I was obviously upset and worked up and made a promise to her that I would get her case dismissed. It took a couple months. It took setting it for trial. It took the morning of trial until the district attorney's office, and I got a very good DA who's now a judge, looked at the case and said, yeah, why are we doing this? She's never been in trouble. She's 73 years old. She's already out of the apartment. Let's get this case gone. Don't ever promise clients anything. You're not supposed to do that with good reason, but it's really nice to be able to do something and have an impact, especially it's something that I think about, I think once a month, something I did well. And yeah, she's just so memorable. I talk to her every once in a while, and it's great.
The next question is about mentors. Can you tell us a little bit about what role mentors play in your life and where you sought out your strongest mentors?
I wouldn't be here without mentors today, just flat out. My parents, to their credit, they both graduated high school. They didn't go to college. They told me very early on they could not help me where I was going or where I wanted to go. Those words themselves definitely helped me because I knew, Mom, Dad ain't gonna help me. I gotta figure this out. And it took a lot of, falling down on my face, getting back up, going for it. I bombed the LSAT the first time. I didn't take it seriously enough. I didn't prepare for it. I figured out a scholarship I could get. They let me take a Kaplan course. I, was able to get help with that and did well in the LSAT enough to get into law school here. And even here, the dean's office, Dean Leach was still here, Anne Marie, who was over here, helped me kind of guide me to where I was supposed to go, what I was supposed to do. As an attorney, even, you don't lose mentors, you just get more. So I got more mentors as an attorney, meeting them mainly through La Raza Lawyers Association. I think the one here is called Latinx Lawyers Students Association, but really wherever you can find them. You find somebody who you want to be like when you grow up, and you bug them until they help you, is my advice to that. My first year as a solo practitioner, because I had this mentor who, took after me, he let me use an office space for the first year without having to pay rent. And slowly just, increased my rent until I took over his side of things, and I'm paying my full share now. And so mentorship is just invaluable. So definitely, it couldn't hurt to shoot an email to people you've, grew up with, who are doing the same thing as well. You can even mentor each other. There's people who go through experiences and maybe know what to do next, and they can mentor you through as well. That's very valuable even as an attorney because things change, laws change, and you kind of have to keep that going. And of course, giving back and mentoring younger students like yourselves and law students. Mentorship is just the reason I'm here today.
Yeah, 100%. Mentors are very, very important, especially in the legal community, because this is a community that receives its power by restricting information to other people. So when you're in law school, just make sure you take advantage of every single opportunity that you can get, right? Because when you're in law school, everyone's willing to help law students. Everyone wants to help law students, and there's so many different programs that are either in law school, or if you look at the local county bar, like the Santa Clara County Bar Association, San Mateo County Bar Association, La Raza, Asian Pacific American Bar Association. There's all these groups where you're able to meet other attorneys in a non-confrontational situation where you're able to actually build a rapport as friends as opposed to as opposing counsel. So when you're in those situations, just take advantage of it, because when, like we were talking about, when you're a law student, everyone wants to help you. But I think one thing that's also to keep very important to keep in mind is the people in this room and the people who are also your colleagues, those are the people who are going to mentor you as well. Sorry to bring this up, but we were in the bathroom a couple minutes ago, and I know he's a criminal defense attorney, and I just had a question about criminal defense, and he's like, oh yeah, you just got to think about X, Y, and Z. I was like, ooh, okay, I just got coached up right now. So it's always really good to keep good connections with the people around you. Always look for mentors when you're a law student, and always try to get involved with your local bar association, because that's where you could meet more attorneys, because those attorneys are interested in helping the next generation as well.
The next question is, how has your university impacted your practice?
My university?
Your diversity.
Oh, diversity, got it. I'd say, when I look at the word diversity, it has to do with everything, right? Socioeconomic status, the way we were raised, how we were raised, what area we were raised in, and also, the experiences we had growing up. I'm mixed. I'm half Korean, half Polish, or half Anglo, whatever we want to call it. Wasian, I think that's a term that's being thrown around a lot. But I'd say it helped out a lot, because when I was growing up, I was witness to certain situations that I know my other non-mixed or non-people of color friends have not experienced. I've been in stores where associates are talking to my friends and family like they don't know how to speak English. I've been in different situations where I felt powerless and I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know any attorneys to help out with that. For example, there's this one time when I was in college, I played college football at the University of Idaho. I remember 3 of my classmates were walking down the street from the bars one night, and then a party of 30 different guys came outside and jumped all 3 of them. There was a lot of racial slurs being said, thrown around in that situation, and those 3 guys ended up coming to us, figuring out. They went to the apartments with all the polys, and then we went over there, and the guys went over to that party. At the end of the night, 2 of my friends were the ones who got arrested, and none of the people who jumped, the other 2 African Americans and 1 white guy, anything happened to them. So I'd say when I'm now in a position where we are allowed to go in these courtrooms, we are allowed to advocate for people. We have to draw off our experiences, and that's how we get the passion and how we help the next generation of people. I know that during March 2020 and during 3 days after the Atlanta spa shootings, or 1 day after the Atlanta spa shootings, I remember having phone conversations with my mom. And if you don't remember that time, there was a time where there was violent attacks towards not only Asian American elders, but Latino elders too, all over the San Francisco Bay Area. There were a lot of vendors who were being jumped. There were a lot of Asian Americans who were being attacked. And that just all exploded. So 3 days after the Atlanta spa shootings, me and a couple of my friends, we hosted a Stop Asian Hate rally in downtown San Jose, and we saw a whole bunch of the community come together, which is a really uplifting experience for all of us. Now, would I have done that had I not grown up the way that I had? Probably not. Would I have organized that event had I not been the first person in the University of Idaho's history to start an Asian Pacific American Law Student Association chapter? Probably not. But it's through all of these experiences and all these little different community groups and all the mentors that I've had where, when something like that happens, you just flip it on and then you just start acting. Now, was I tired after those 5 days? I don't know. I was running solely on fire. But did it benefit the community? Yes. And did it show the community what I'm about? I believe it showed them a little bit more. Yeah.
Diversity is very important, I think, especially because it gives us all different experiences. We all come to the law, to this a place with different experiences, and really what it comes down to, and it's similar to, I think, the law itself, is it comes down to the vocabulary, how you are able to describe something. Anyone can practice law. Anyone can, do the law. It's just, can you learn the phrases and the words that unlock the law for you? And that's really what the law boils down to. It's the same with diversity in your own experiences. Can you distill your own experiences to, help you and guide you through these times? I was just sitting in a discussion with a judge and a prosecutor the other day, and my client was in the alley drinking, hanging out with his friends, something I grew up doing with, tons of people. And the question was, why are they doing that? Because that's what you do, right? That's what you do on a Friday night. You're hanging out with your friends. Can't be inside because mom's going to yell at you about being too loud. And that's a completely normal experience I grew up doing with my friends and family members, but it gets lost because, again, everyone's coming to the law with these different experiences, and they don't understand that that's completely normal behavior. That is something that, happens on a daily basis throughout many neighborhoods, not just in San Jose, but throughout the state, throughout the country. And so the whole purpose of diversity and why diversity is so important is so we can all bring these experiences to normalize what is happening. They saw this group of young men drinking in the alleyway as, starting a problem, but what problem are they going to start in an alleyway, right? They're not at the park. They're not, outside a store hassling anyone. They're leaving everyone alone. And this is exactly why my experience and my diversity coming to the table could say, this is totally normal, it happens all the time. And that just gets lost in the law. And so the more diverse and the more experiences you can bring to the law, the better off the law itself is.
Thank you. Let's see. The next question is, what do you think, in your opinion and your experience, our fellows can do to advance justice through their legal career?
I think everyone understands what justice is, right? We all grow up with an innate sense of it. That's right, that's wrong. What you can do to advance it, and it's the most important thing that you can do basically in life, even if you don't end up being a lawyer, is just show up. Nothing happens if you don't show up, if your voice isn't heard. You don't have to, get on the megaphone and yell and, jump up and down. But if there's a perspective, if there's a idea of justice that is not getting shared, you need to show up and express that. You need to show up and make your voice heard, whether it's in school, whether it's in government, whether it's just at home, right? Nothing happens if you don't show up and say something. And so I think that's the most important advice for all young people, just in general, is to show up and make sure that perspective is heard. And if no one's saying it, then you need to be the one to grab the mic and say it.
So I was asked this question the other day, and what I would say, what you can do to further justice is remember where you came from. Remember the place that raised you. Remember the experiences that you had growing up. Because as we get older, as you become an attorney, and as you get more involved in the legal community, more of your time is going to be taken up with legal community items or with legal groups or having happy hours, conversations, or different meetups with other attorneys and other judges and other professionals in that industry. When we get older, we're also going to have less time to focus on our personal lives and our hobbies and the places that we came from too. So all I ask is, as you develop in your legal career, as you become a law student, as you become more informed, don't forget the place that you came from. Go back there, try to see if you can help them, see if you could help the person who was in your shoes 15 years ago. Because that's how we build communities up. It's not by putting more financial resources in there, it's putting more people power, more people resources back in the community that were not normally accessible by that community. And so that's what I would say. Like pro bono is really big in our world, and just don't forget to give back.
The next question is kind of related to experiences that are both in your bios. What role have bar association involvement and participation held in your career? How have they helped to advance your career or build mentorship?
The bar associations have been huge in my career. I went to law school and college out of state. So even though I grew up here, I just didn't have the legal connections that I would have developed had I went to law school around the area. So the first thing I did was I joined the San Mateo County Bar Association, and in all the bar associations, they have a young and new attorneys group, which is typically called the Barristers Association. And those are for people who are typically within their first and 10th year of practice. And that's also, it's like a separate group outside of the big bar. So when you're talking with the big bar and all the older attorneys and all the people who've been there for the last 20 years, you're also able to spend time with people who are around the same career arc as you. They've been lawyers around the same time, and you're able to get to know them in non-confrontational situations and kind of develop with them. I know, for example, I've been part of the San Mateo County Bar since 2014, I believe, and this morning we just had a barrister's hike over in outside of San Carlos. So there's about 8 of us attorneys hiking for about an hour and a half, and during that hike we talked about cases, we talked about our personal lives, and also ways that we can spend more time worrying about our mental health. So that's always a good group to be around because, they're experiencing very similar things that we are. And although we don't talk about it, when you're able to spend as much time with those people, you're able to talk about it and bring those things up. Also, if you're ever looking to get into a new area of law, the bar associations are going to be really beneficial because a lot of these bar associations have different committee groups for different areas of law. I know in the Santa Clara County Bar Association, I'm a part of the Labor and Employment Group, and that is a really educational group to be a part of because they are talking about the new and upcoming cases. They are talking about situations that they've been in, and since they've been practicing for years longer than I have, they've seen a lot of situations that I haven't. So I'm able to learn from them as opposed to going through the same mistakes and trials myself.
So as you heard, I'm from Arizona originally. The first thing I really gravitated towards, especially with some of the more affinity law groups like La Raza, is it really gave me a sense of family. I have people who talk to me similar to the way my cousins talk to me, my uncles, my aunts, my grandparents. I call them the OGs, the older ones from the group, elected me secretary the first time, kind of as a joke because I didn't show up to a meeting. And so it's kind of similar things to that. You get a sense of family, a sense of community that really helped me. I grew up, in the same area as my parents. My parents never left the same area, and so it was really important to me to have that sense of community that started here at Santa Clara and continued on to the area. Another very helpful thing is, also learning what I don't want to be like as an attorney. You meet these other attorneys from different areas, and it's like, I don't like you. And, you pinpoint kind of why and what you also question, how am I coming across in these areas? And it really gives you a good sense of the breadth of a legal profession, but also like, I want to stay away from that area, or that's not for me. It's good to get those experiences and have them. And if you don't have to go through them and someone else can go through them, you can also piggyback off that and really learn from your colleagues and other people in these organizations. And again, it's a diverse group of people that come from different areas. You want to get everything you can out of that.
Thank you. And also, free drinks and food.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
So also something to keep in mind. The next question is, how do you practice self-care, considering we just heard that both of you work pretty much your bodies?
Yes. Trying to work out when I can. It's not always easy. I do have my dog, CJ, who I take on walks. She helps me get outside at least 2-3 times a day, which is good. And really, it's really about unplugging sometimes and putting the law aside. You're going to get so wrapped up in school, in the profession, that's kind of all you see. And like I said before, it's really important to keep your hobbies and keep something that removes you from the law just a bit. It doesn't have to for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. I have a colleague who has a Nintendo Switch in his briefcase for when he has downtime, just to get in some time away from the law, because it can really creep into your life. And it can just, as students now, you can burn out, doing the same thing over and over again. You really need to go outside at some point. You need to, get some sunlight. Eating well is always important as well. I did not eat so well the last couple of years. It's starting to catch up to me as I'm getting older here. So you just want to get in these good habits of taking care of yourself and really just trying to figure out what, helps you. And it's going to be different for every person. What relaxes me won't relax other people. So it's really just knowing yourself and learning about yourself to get grounded every day, once a week, when you can. It's really tough sometimes to do that, but you have to be cognizant of it. It's tough as a solo practitioner to do it because there's no one who's going to tell you to do it. There's no boss. There's no one who's looking out for you. You have to look out for yourself, right? You're the boss, but you're also your own employee. So you have to take care of your employees and really give yourself a break every once in a while.
Yeah, find your exhaust pipe. I mean, when you're in school, when you're practicing, when you're working, you're just like a machine that's going all day, every day. But if you don't have that exhaust pipe where all that stress leaves and leaves you throughout the day, then you're going to end up burning out a lot faster than the average person. So when I say find that exhaust pipe, I know for me, it's the perfect mix of working out, sunshine, eating well, and seeing your friends. And now one thing that's been getting discussed a lot more is mental health, right? So mental health, if you've never tried therapy before, try it, because just how I talk about physical conditioning, your brain is a muscle as well. And just like you got to go to the gym to work out your muscles, you have to go sometimes see a therapist to work out your brain a little bit. And especially when you're in the legal profession, there are a lot of situations that we cannot talk about, even with our colleagues. There's a lot of situations that we cannot bring home to our spouses, partners, or friends. And that's what we do need to have someone to talk about that with. And that's why, hanging out with your fellow colleague attorneys after hours before you go home is sometimes also very important, because like I said, those people are going through the same thing that you are. And although it's a different situation, different client, different practice field, we're all going through the same stuff. And I think that if you start talking about it with your colleagues, you're going to find out that, your problems are not as, you're not as isolated as you think you are. I know for me, one of my exhaust pipes is, I used to say I coach high school football. I did that for about 4 or 5 years. I haven't been able to do that since I've really gone full speed into litigation. But one thing I've been doing the last couple weeks is, during football practice time, which is around 5 p.m., I do turn it off sometimes and go for a 1.5 mile walk. I go 1.5 mile walk down to the SAP center and walk back. And in that 40 minutes, I walk 2 miles, I get sunshine, I'm able to listen to some music and completely disconnect. And I find that when I go back to work, I work harder after that. And, similar to weekends, don't tell my boss, but I didn't work the last 3 weekends in a row, and I felt really, really guilty about it. But when I'm looking back on the last 3 weeks, the weekdays have been much more efficient, And I've been working much harder during the weekdays because I gave myself that space. So it's a constant learning situation, and that's what I want to share because I'm just learning about that about myself.
Okay, the last question is, can you provide one piece of advice for our fellows? The most important piece of advice.
Yeah, we've been getting a bunch of advice. I'd say the biggest piece of advice that I have is don't compare yourself to the people around you. Everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own learning styles. Everyone gets their own scores. And you know what? Eventually, when you're in law school, everyone's sitting their butts in that same classroom that you are. So when you're in that classroom, I don't care how long it takes you to get the reading done. I know for me, I used to be a football player, so I read and my mouth moves a little bit when I'm reading the books. So I remember being in the law school for many hours more than a lot of my classmates because I had to reread all those cases until I actually comprehended it. So I was in there, Monday through Friday, and I was in there for Saturdays and Sundays when, I'd be comparing to my classmates and ask them, how long did it take you to complete this assignment or complete this reading? They're like, oh, just an hour. I was like, wow, it took me 4. Don't get discouraged because guess what? As soon as you pass that bar exam, everyone's the same. Everyone's a licensed attorney. You're all on the same page. It doesn't matter what grades you got. It matters how diligent you work, how effectively you communicate with your clients, and how well you advocate for them. And that's what really matters, not the 4.0 that I didn't get in law school.
I think similar to Adam, my advice is that there's no perfect way, there's no right way to get any of this done. There's suggestions, there's experience of other people, but as long as you get it done, it doesn't really matter how it gets done. And so don't worry about, just like I said, I bombed the LSAT the first time. I thought I was just gonna be skipping along and doing what I was supposed to do, and I had to, figure it out. Don't be afraid to fail. It's gonna happen. You're gonna fall flat on your face. It's just about getting up and really going back to why you wanna do this, right? Why do you wanna be a lawyer? You all have different reasons for it. Maybe your parents are, maybe you saw it on TV. The reason I wanted to become a lawyer was because I saw Johnny Cochran defend O.J. Simpson, which some of you might not know that. Today it's Camilla and Johnny Depp, right? Everyone wants to be Camilla. But even that sort of inspiration of why I wanted to do that. Here was Johnny Cochran defending somebody with everything he had, with all of his skills and experience, and that's what I wanted to be. And so just really coming back to that in those tough times, when you do fall flat on your face and you do bomb that test or you do not make that scholarship application. There are other ways to do it. You just got to figure it out and find a way to do it. And it's not hard when you look back on it. It's going to seem like, why was I worried about this? You probably already have those experiences from when you were even younger. Why was I worried about that so much? It's the same for the things you're going through right now. I know it's tough to feel that way, but it's okay to fail. It's okay not to do it perfectly because, again, there's no perfect way to get this done.
Johnny Cochran and also not being able to be Batman.
There you go.
All right, thank you both. Okay, so I think we have some time for some questions from everybody. So SoCal, if you have any questions, by the way, we have all the SoCal fellows on Zoom, so they'll be adding some questions.
They're back there.
But we'll start here. So does anyone have any questions about solo practice? You got it.
What do you do when you find yourself in quicksand, whether it's part of the finances of the firm and paying your own bills, or defending clients in the middle of a trial and also trying to recruit new clients and still manage your team?
It's, just going back to the basics, I think, at the end of the day, right? You learn where the law is, right? There's a statute, it's there, you can read it. And coming back to that and really reminding yourself of what needs to happen. It's really easy to get caught up in the anxiety of a case and get caught up in the emotions of a case and really lose sight of what you're doing and why. Even when tax time comes around, right? It's tough to really focus on, well, I got to do this because I don't want to get audited. And you really have to come back to being grounded either in yourself, the emotions you're feeling, or back into the law and really get back to the basics of what you're doing. And if you allow that anxiety to kind of sit with you, it's nothing but going to sap your strength. And so even getting away from the desk and getting away from the taxes is very important. Me and Adam have talked a lot about, getting back to our hobbies and getting away from the law. It is very important. I think even more so as a solo, because again, no one's looking out for you. You have to look out for yourself. And just knowing where your own points are that are going to give you anxiety. So I hate tax time, and so I take extra time to get ready for that. And it's just knowing yourself, because a good thing about being a solo is it gets done however you want it to get done. There's no right way to do it. However you want it to get it done, that's the way it's going to get done. And so it's also, again, just coming back to those basics and grounding yourself.
Yeah. When you find yourself in quicksand, what you have to do is stop struggling, right? Stop struggling and try to take a seat, take a mindfulness minute. There's a lot of mental health tools that we're able to use. I know that sometimes it's counting down from 10. Sometimes it's singing a song that you know the beat to. So in your head, if you know it's going fast, then you need to slow your butt down, But when you're a solo, it's tough because I feel like that's really where you get to know yourself. There's no one over you unless you're really, really lucky to tell you, hey, you need to take a break, or hey, you need to start spending less of your time, on your phone and more of your time drafting and researching. You have no one to tell you that except for you. So one of the things that really help is lists. I make lists every single day. If you go into my office, you're going to see my to-do list for the day. You're going to see the to-do list I started at the beginning of the week, and then they're going to have things crossed out, but then there's still going to be other things on there. And it's just having every single mental tool to remember your clients, remember deadlines, and remember all that stuff. If you're talking about being in quicksand, I remember there's this one time in 2018 where I was working this case, and I just had a really bad call with an opposing counsel. And I remember after that phone call, I literally had to sit down on the floor and be like, second guess my litigation strategy, second guess the case. And then I had to pull myself out on it and remind myself where I came from, who this case is about, what this case is for, and that what the facts were. Because in this profession, especially if you're in litigation, everyone's going to be gaslighting you, and that's the whole point about it. And right now in our personal lives, we hear that that's not good, and we should never accept that in our lives. That's part of the legal profession, because you're telling your side of the story and advocating zealously for your client, just as they are for theirs. So find what your exhaust pipe is, because that's what's going to save you. It's going to save you because when you're feeling like that, when you're feeling like you can't do anything right and everything you're doing is just going to be taking forever, you got to go do the things that you're doing when you're growing up. Go work out, play D&D, hop on a computer, hop on your Nintendo Switch, because those are the things that will really get us connected to where we started from. And that's when we'll be like, all right, I know no one's trying to punch me in the face today. These are just words on a paper, so let me read these words, and I'll put different words on a different piece of paper, and then see what happens.
This next question is specifically for Ralph. So, straight off. Did you have a hard time establishing a relationship with judges and DAs in your own practice as opposed to the relationships you would have built as a PD?
Yes and no. When I first started out, I was something called an appearance attorney. It's not something that happens much nowadays because of Zoom and Microsoft Teams, but before, you had to have an attorney in court. That being said, there's some attorneys who have too much business and not enough time, and so I was sent out to various courtrooms across the area to just appear, and sometimes to get yelled at on behalf of the attorney. But you really kind of see how people comport themselves, how people act, and kind of develop your own style, how you want to talk to judges. It's really easy, especially with criminal defense, and I think any litigation, to really be in this kind of bulldog mode. That's not what happens most of the time. The way things actually get done, I would want to say 90% of the time, is the relationships you have with these judges, with these DAs. It's really easy to point fingers and start mudslinging. I know attorneys who will never take blame for anything, but you really gain a reputation, and you really gain points with everyone to say, you know what, I didn't get that in on time, can I have some more time? Instead of trying to make up some excuse or trying to do something else. The judges appreciate it, opposing counsel appreciate it, and you will start to get into more courtrooms even if you're not a public defender. A public defender sees, their assignment. And so, especially in this county, they have different assignments where maybe it's just a misdemeanor attorney, they're in that one courtroom with that one judge. So obviously they're going to have a better relationship than I am. And I need to know that going in. And so it's really about being flexible, being open, and being honest with them to really gain that reputation. Because you're going to hear this, especially in law school, you probably already heard it now, your reputation is everything. If you have a bad reputation, no one's going to believe you, no one's going to help you out. If you have a good reputation, you know what? You're going on vacation, fine, let's continue that motion, let's do this, let's help you out. That doesn't happen to somebody who comes in, you know, wanting to fight about everything. That's not necessarily what the practice of law is. And so it was difficult to kind of build that reputation, but as long as that's what is in the back of your head throughout every single contact you have, you'll be fine, you'll gain those contacts.
Can I ask you guys to comment?
Yeah.
How important is it to have good relationships with the staff in courts?
Super important to have great relationships with court clerks and court staff generally, and including the bailiffs, including the security team out front when you're under the courts. Those are the people that make the clocks tick in the courthouse. You know, the court wouldn't be moving without them. And they're also the people who are going to be reviewing all of the filings. When you're in court, you have to file a lot of paperwork, whether it to be starting a lawsuit or filing a motion. And you know, believe it or not, sometimes lawyers make mistakes on those filings. And the court clerks are the ones reading it, and they're the ones telling you what you need to do to fix it. So if you have a good relationship with a court clerk, sometimes that sentence long that they provide you on how to fix your filing becomes 2 sentences, or it becomes a very accurate sentence. And then when you end up going into the courts and talking to the person in real life, and they know you, there's an easier rapport, they know exactly what you're going for, and you just want to have a successful and effective filing, so they know that you're not trying to pull anything over anyone, or like that. So it's very important to have very good relationships. I know when I just recently filed a few lawsuits over in Contra Costa County, in Coco County, and I know there was an issue with one of my filings in the family court. And when the family court called me, they said, "Hey, I remember when you came into the office. This is what you need to do to fix it." And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And she said, no. I said A, B, C, X, Y, Z. And I'm like, all right, let me just write that down. Could you please repeat yourself one more time? They want to help you. They want to make the courthouse more efficient. So, you know, it's just like us. If you're easy to talk to and you have a good relationship, they're going to help you out a little bit more.
I totally agree with that. You know, going back to the reputation, I've had clerks call me and be like, you know, you have so-and-so on calendar? No, I didn't. Let me go over there. When I first started, my first conversations are always to the clerks. Where do I stand? How does this run? You know, they're the ones who see it day in and day out. You do not ever want to be on a clerk's bad side. I don't care if the clerk looks at you funny and talks down to you. You kiss that booty as much as possible, because they can make or break you. Functionally, they are more important than the judge, right? The judge decides things, but it's the clerk who enters that. It's the clerk who writes down the minutes. It's the clerk who files those things for you. The judge can talk all he wants, but if that doesn't get filed, it doesn't get done. That comes back to the clerks. And so you want to make sure you get a good relationship with them, even if they don't like you. You're going to experience that a lot in, you know, just life. But these people can make or break you. And so you really want to make sure you get on every clerk's good side no matter what.
Yeah, and let me just add, and actually you can repeat this. When you're first in court, the judge, he or she is in chambers, that clerk is watching everything going on. If you're unable, before your appearance, the judge is going to know. And oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get your papers. If you think that doesn't happen, wake up, because it does.
What Cindy's saying is that when the judge isn't there, when he's in chambers or she's in chambers, then the clerks are still watching, and they hold grudges.
Yes, they do.
Essentially.
It's mind if I add to that? It's similar when you go to any job interview ever. The first person that you're going to talk to is the administrative assistant or the person at the front of the building who's going to let you in that building. And if you think that person, the person who's hiring you, or the court clerk, if they're not talking to the person who let you in to see how respectful you were, how personable you were, Yeah, you need to be careful every single step of the way. And when I say be careful, I just mean be kind. Because when you're kind, that goes a long way. Because there's a lot of people who are not kind, and I'd rather stay far away from that side of the field.
It's like all those LinkedIn stories where they're like, I had someone flick me off in their car, and then I was their job boss or person.
Yeah.
I think you had a question, right?
Yeah, I think just on the topic of relationships, how and when, I'm assuming in your line of work, you've established like mentorships, like how and when did you select those, or how do you know who to seek out in regards to establishing those connections and mentors?
Well, that's a really complicated question because it's something that you continuously. So, so the question was when do you find mentors? How do you find mentors? And at what point in your career do you find mentors? And what do you look for? Is that essentially what you're looking for? Saying. So I think that mentors are very important, and as you progress in your career, you'll always try to find more mentors, because even if you're a 10th, 15th, or 20-year attorney, there's going to be a lot of situations that you have not seen before, so you want to talk and seek out those people who have seen those experiences. Now, at the beginning of this panel, I said, when you're in law school, take advantage of every single opportunity you have, because at that point in time, you're able to talk to all different types of professionals and alumni who went to that school, and you're able to pick and choose what field you want to learn about. And those people will want to talk to you about that field because they're going to want to talk to you about the school. They're going to want to talk to you about going to the hut after class, just like they used to do back in the day. I used to go there too. And it's at that point you're able to learn, okay, I'm going to talk to this professional about this one thing, and then you're going to learn about that field. All right, I don't like that field anymore. I'm going to talk to this person. And when you start creating all those relationships, there's going to be different times in your life where you want opportunities. So you want a job, you have time for a clerkship or an internship. So you're going to think about all the people that you talk to and which ones you have the best relationships with, and you're going to ask them, hey, can I help you? Can I help work for you? Can I intern or clerk? And when you're a law student, people are way more apt to help you because they know you're not competing with them. They know that they're able to teach you the way that they were taught or the way that they're doing things. And also, they know that you're hungry, you're ready to work, and you want to learn, right? And that's what you really need to push forward is you need to be like willing and eager to learn new experiences and fail. And when you're looking at mentors, you also got to be careful on who you pick as your mentors. So when you talk to different attorneys and you're thinking about going into practice or going to work for somebody, ask other attorneys what their reputation is. Because if they have a bad reputation, some of the things that they're going to be teaching you when you're there for 40 to 60 hours a week, might not be the best practices and might not be the most well accepted in that courtroom. So be careful when you do that. Always just get more people's opinions. And, one thing you got to watch out about is be careful you don't step on any snakes while you're in that world too.
I don't think there's a time that says this is my mentor, this is who I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. They come and go. You pick up some, you don't pick up others. What I think is the most important is to really find somebody who, I'm sure you have it now. I want to be like this person when I grow up, right? That doesn't change. You still want to be like this next run, right? I still want to be like Johnny Cochran when I grow up. Or my biggest mentor is Al Morales, who's an attorney who's been practicing 40 years, is about to retire. In my head, I want to be like Al when I grow up. And if you find those sorts of people in your life, bug them until they help you. And they may not have the time, and that's fine, and you kind of move on. But it doesn't hurt to ask. The only thing people can say is no, and that's fine. If you go in expecting that, that's totally fine. But really, just think about that. Think about your feelings when you talk to that person. Are you inspired by them? Do they have something to offer you? Even if it's just somebody to talk to and someone who helps you, get through a tough time in your life. Those people can be mentors and help you as well. And so there's not, any rhyme or reason to it. They just kind of come and go and ebb and flow. You just have to make sure you're open to it. You're open to the advice. You're receptive to these people helping you. Again, you're not going to find the same person twice that's going to help you the same way. And so it really just works out for you, and you just have to be open to it.
Any other questions? There.
Yes, hi, my name is Santiago, and my question really harps back to what Ralph was talking about, watching your reputation. And it's actually directed towards Adam. So it's in regards to social media, and I love social media. I have a TikTok account, and I only have 15,000 followers. I don't have 544,000 followers or a verified blue check. But you know, it's very easy to get to really mess up your reputation or come off the wrong way by accident on social media. And I say this because I think it's also very important. I made a short video about how the first thing I wanted to do with my UC Berkeley degree after graduating wasn't working at a firm. It was really like giving back to my community and working as a translator for a small nonprofit that worked with LGBT refugees. And then it's funny because once I finished that, a friend sent that video to a lawyer, and then he offered me a job because he saw that video. But I say this all to highlight why social media is so important and why it shouldn't be overlooked. So I wanted to ask Adam, what advice do you have about like watching your reputation on social media and really just like building like, I don't know, like I guess, yeah, like your rep online?